Hello, in this video I'll show you how to make removable vinyl labels using your Cricut machine. I'm going to do the design work for my vinyl labels in the Cricut design space, so I open that software up and create a new project. I have two containers and I want one to say flower and one to say sugar. So I type those two words in and then I start looking through the different fonts to pick out the font I want to use. I like a nice script font. And since I'm using peel and stick vinyl, it will be easiest if I have all of the letters connected. This will help me line everything up when I'm actually putting the vinyl onto the containers. As I scroll through the different fonts, I select one that I like, and then I copy and paste it to continue scrolling through to see other fonts that I might like. After looking through all of the different script fonts, there ended up being 4 total that I like and think would look good for this project. I narrow it down to my 2 favorite fonts. I know that I want the finished product to have a box around the word, so I'm going to add this box in now and see how the different fonts look within that box. I added in a square using the Shapes button on the left. Then I copied this square and turned the copy to be a different color. Then I make this copied piece slightly smaller than the first square that I put in. This will be creating the border. Finally, I use the align to center the 2 boxes together and make sure that the border is the same dimensions all the way around. Then I select both of the boxes and click Slice. This cuts the dimensions of the smaller box out of the larger box. What I'm left with is a border that I can place around the words. I copy and paste a new box so that I can put it over the flower and the sugar words. Then I click on the box and click the Unlock button on the bottom left. This allows me to shape the box specifically for the word. Then I click Align and center the word and the box together. Then I do the same for the word sugar in the same font. I'm sizing the box horizontally so that it perfectly lines up with the start and finish of the word. This is because I want all of the letters to be connected to each other and to the edge of the box. I repeat the same process for the other words of flower and sugar, and I don't like the way that this font looks within the box. So I delete these and keep working with my original font, which is Snell Roundhand. Now that I'm working with one font, I need to close the rest of the letters so that each of the pieces of vinyl can be connected together. To do this, I insert different shapes and size it up to where I have gaps and try to make it look smooth and continuous. I close the gap between the F and the L with a rectangle, and then I move on to work on sugar. The gap in sugar is between the S and the U, and I need this to still look like a nice script font. So I actually duplicate the word sugar, and then I'm going to slice out one of the curvy font pieces between the G and the A. I keep inserting different rectangles and slice this out until I have the upward stroke from the G. Then I place this between the S and the U. This takes some time to get right, but it ensures that this stroke matches the font on the rest of the word to make the entire design look nice and cohesive. Now that I have this addition placed, I insert a new box and I turn this box white. The point of this is to make sure that I have this level with all of the other upward strokes that are in the word. Now that I have this as a frame of reference, I adjust this upward stroke again and make sure that everything lines up. There's still a slight gap between the S and the U even with this added piece, but this is a small enough gap that I can fill it with a small rectangle and still keep the integrity of the font. I weld everything together when I'm done. Then I save the project to make sure that if anything happens to the software, I don't lose the work so far. I measured my container and I checked the size of the vinyl sticker that I want to put onto it, but I'm also going to cut this out in cardstock before I cut it in vinyl. This is a good trick because vinyl is much more expensive than the cardstock, and I can cut cardstock over and over in case there's anything wrong with the design. The main reason that I'm doing this is because I know that some of these thin lines to create the cursive script might not cut very well on the Cricut machine. So I'm testing this on paper first so that I can understand if I need to go back and fix any parts. So you can see that the Cricut had difficulty cutting the U on flour and the A and R on sugar, and this is due to having too thin of lines to cut. I had just replaced the blade on my Cricut, so I knew that the cutting issues were attributed to the design rather than the blade. This type of fix is really difficult to do in the Cricut design space, so I took a screenshot of what I had designed in the Cricut design space, and I opened the screenshot in my Pixelmator editor. Then I deleted out the background on the outside of the boxes and then in between the box and the words. And where the Cricut had difficulty cutting, I used the paintbrush tool and I thickened the lines there. Then I exported the edits as a PNG file and loaded this back into the Cricut Design Space software. I did another test cut with Cardstock, and this time it came out really nice. Now I'm ready to cut these two words out in vinyl. So I go to my Cricut machine and I change the dial from Cardstock to vinyl. You should see this changing on your Cricut Design Space software too. Then I start the cut. The knife blade should cut through the top layer of vinyl, but it should not cut into the sticky backing on the back of the vinyl. I use the weeding tool to remove the scrap pieces from around the pieces that I'm going to keep, and then I use the tool again to lift off the pieces that I'll be putting onto the containers. This is removable vinyl, so it definitely has a sticky back, but in the event that you get it stuck to itself, you can separate it easily too. This is one of the reasons that I wanted the word and the border around the word to be connected, because it makes it much easier to take off and to place onto the container. I had purchased some round containers to put this onto, which definitely makes the process harder because I'm using a square box on a round container. I placed the box down first, and some of the letters of the word stuck to themselves, but I pulled them apart and then laid those down after. I pressed the middle letter of the word onto the container first so that I could try to get equal spacing between the different letters. And again, this was removable vinyl, so it did take me a couple tries to get it to look the way that I wanted to. When I needed to move the letters around, I used the weeding tool to help pull them off of the container, but again did this very carefully to make sure not to scratch the plastic container. After I had my labels on, I filled the jars up with the flour and the sugar. Having the white in the jar also helped to see where some of the letters were misaligned, and after I had this done, I then went back and tried to realign the letters again. Thanks for watching this video on how to make removable vinyl labels. Let me know how it worked out for you in the comments below, and as always, like and subscribe to see more content.